Hello, SCiL Lab work studiers. If you're watching this, it's to learn about using the ISO booth I'm sitting in, as well as Reaper on the outside computer. I'm going to talk over some prepared footage, and as you observe, we'll be guiding you and pointing out important points. Now, if you are not aware, be sure to check out the SCiL Wiki pages. There is written information about the equipment, as well as a process for setting everything up and using Reaper. For anything you want to learn in the lab, you can look at the wiki and see if anyone has posted a helpful walkthrough, or maybe you can be the one to do that. Let's get started. We are going to talk about setting up. When you're setting up the booth, you'll have to choose a mic to use. There are two in the booth, and you can test these on your own time to decide which fancies you. For now, we'll use the AT2020 condenser mic. The AT2020 is already mounted on the arm and ready for action. We need to plug it into the wall pocket. This is located beneath the table and to your left, if you were standing from the entrance. Mics are plugged in using an XLR cable, which you can see neatly wrapped on the table. As I unwrap it, I will show you both ends and plug into the mic and wall pocket. It does not matter which wall pocket you choose your XLR cable to plug into. Now, after the XLR cable is plugged in, we are also going to plug the HA400 microamp into a wall pocket, except this time a 1/4" jack is required. When the microamp is plugged in, you can plug in the 12-volt cord, then the headphone jack into any of the 4 jacks. Everything is now plugged in. We can now move outside to finish routing your plugins. We need to plug in an XLR cable and 1/4" one, in correlation to the two plugged inside the booth. It does not matter which wall pocket you plug the XLR or 1/4" jack into. After these are plugged in, it's time to decide how you want to utilize your audio interface. On an important note, the type of session you want to run will determine where your 1/4" and XLR cables plug into the audio interfaces. Here's an example scenario we'll work with. A student wants to record their voice in the audio booth. We're going to use the AT2020 to record their monologue. The microamp is plugged up, and we're going to run this into the bottom audio interface. The desktop mic is plugged into the bottom interface, while the top one is connected to the mic inside the ISO booth. The reason your microamp is plugged into the bottom interface with 1/4" jacks is related to direct monitoring. Let's go over a visual showing the signal flow. The desktop mic will plug into your bottom audio interface. Plugged behind it are your two 1/4" jacks, which run into a single 1/4" jack on the ISO booth's outer wall pocket. Another 1/4" jack comes out the inner wall pocket and plugs into the HA400 microamp. The person inside uses the headphones plugged in. Make sure the microamp is on by checking the orange light, and for the 12-volt plug to be inserted, and is now ready to hear sound from the desktop mic. You will now turn on direct monitoring by clicking the button labeled as so. Since this is for one mic, we want it in mono mode, which is represented by a single circle. Cycling it to 2 circles enables stereo, which puts the output of both channels of the interface into separate ears. If that were the case, you would hear audio in one ear and nothing in the other, because nothing would be plugged into your other channel's combo jack. Your bottom audio interface is set up, so let's talk about using the top one. Mics being used from the audio booth will plug into a separate audio interface, which I will go over as we dive into Reaper. The only cable left is the XLR connected to the booth mic, which is currently being plugged into the top audio interface. With the mic now plugged in, we're ready to dive into using the monitor and opening Reaper. But first, make sure both of your audio interfaces are connected by their USB-C cables. They plug into the rear of each interface, then into your computer. When you do as shown, the monitor icon should light up green. Finally, you can sit and turn on the computer. Log in and you'll see Reaper on your desktop, ready to open up. We're going to open up a new project session. Double-click the Reaper icon. The interface that pops up is your bare bones layout. In the middle is your timeline, where recordings will show up. On the left is your arrangement window, where tracks will show up. On the bottom is another iteration of your tracks, but this is referred to as a mixer window. This is because you can toggle aspects of your recording here, while the arrangement window is for visual and sorting purposes. Let's create a track to see what I am talking about. By hovering over the track option at the top of your screen, a drop-down menu appears. The first option is to insert a new track, which can also be done by the shortcut Ctrl-T. Either way, you end up with a new track like this. Now remember, this track will appear in 2 places, your arrangement window and your mixer window. You're almost ready to record, but let's fall back on a few important notes. Drag your mixer window until you see this option appear. Click the input drop-down menu and 4 options will appear. We want to change the input mono because we are using one mic for the left and right output. To elaborate, look at the front of this interface. There are 2 channels on a Focusrite, labeled by the numbers here. The way I want you to think of this is to change these numbers to the terms left and right, just like the input options for Reaper. The left channel, which is number 1, is your left mono input for Reaper. If you have this selected, the mic plugged into this channel will be recorded on your track. If you were to select input mono right, then your track will now be listening to whatever mic is plugged into the combo jack under channel number 2. Do you see the correlation here? When you begin recording, tracks that have been armed will be the only ones to have their audio recorded. If you had multiple tracks and some were not armed, nothing would be recorded onto the unarmed tracks, only the armed ones. When you click the arm button, it will become a brighter red. A vertical meter should appear on the right-hand side of your track, measuring levels of audio input from the mic. However, we're using the AT2020 mic, which is a condenser microphone. I'll say this now, but know that this information is provided in the equipment page for our SCiL Wiki. Condenser mics require phantom power because they are electrically charged mics. These types of mics are known for producing higher quality sound because of this. The audio interface is a power source that provides condenser mics with their needed amount of power. This is toggled by the 48-volt button. With your mics plugged in, click this button to send active electronic power to the mic. Make sure your levels are turned down for your speakers because enabling phantom power can cause a pop sound, which has the potential to damage speakers if your levels are too high. You should now be able to receive levels from your mic. If this is not the case, we need to check the settings. Click Options and then Preferences at the bottom of the drop-down menu. If you're not hearing input, it could be because you have incorrect input and output settings. Make sure your input device is set to microphone with Scarlett 2i2, USB, and parentheses. This option acknowledges both audio interfaces as a potential input. To differentiate the 2 audio interfaces, one has been named Bonnie and the other Clyde. We have our mics plugged into Clyde, so we want him as the output device. You shouldn't have to mess with any settings, so we're ready to click Apply. If you are doing this alone, I use my phone and play music in the booth to check for levels. As you can see, Reaper is displaying output from the AT2020. Finally, you are ready to record. You can either click the big red button or use the shortcut Ctrl-R to start and stop your recordings. The time marker begins moving in time with the live recording. When you are satisfied, stop recording and you'll be prompted to save or delete your file. Saving the recording will do so as a project file. Hover over Files and move down to Render. These are your export settings. Name your file, specify where you want the file in the directory line, and you shouldn't have to tweak anything else. If you're satisfied, click Render in the bottom right. Wherever you set the directory to is where your audio file will be. This concludes the video tutorial for setting up the ISO booth and using Reaper. Thank you for watching and have fun.